where you stabilize and where you move. So if I'm going to measure the MCP joints, and I really want to isolate those, what needs to be stabilized? Metacarpal bone, and then I'm going to move the proximal phalanx or phalange. So this is the movement I'm looking for. So if I'm using a goniometer, a couple of different ways I could line it up. What am I going to use for my axis? I'm going to use the MCP joint itself, and the landmarks for the proximal and distal arms is pretty straightforward. I'm going to line up the proximal arm with what?
Metacarpal.
First metacarpal, and then the distal arm with the distal bone of the joint that I'm measuring, which in this case would be the proximal phalanx. All right, hopefully everyone can see. All right, a couple of different ways I could do this joint. I could line up. I could line up on the lateral side and measure that way, or what I can do is line up on the posterior side like this. Okay, let me get you to bend down here as far as you can. Okay, now you notice once you line it up, you're really using, and this is where this goniometer can, notice his forearm is in the way right here, so I can't put this all the way against the metacarpal. So I could bend his hand that way, or I could use this goniometer right here. That doesn't have that problem. Or I could use one of our special goniometers. So this one fits nicely on here. It's every, let's see, every line is 5 degrees. Okay, and I started here, so I got to orient myself to which numbers I'm looking at. And that's about 95 degrees right there. Okay, so that's a good goniometer to use on the posterior side of the joint. These work the same way. Are you okay there?
Mm-hmm.
All right, go ahead and flex it again. Right, and then I'll line it up. Okay, and again, the axis is not resting against his knuckle or his MCP joint, but the important thing is to line up the proximal and distal arms. So I get here 92 degrees using this one. So this one, every line is 2 degrees. So you got to kind of orient yourself to how many degrees, how the scale works on each of the goniometers. Okay, so that's going to work for each one. I can measure each one of the MCP joints. It's very similar for measuring the PIP joints. So I can use this. Let's see if I can see these. That's 0, and I'm going this way. All right, let's bend this finger as much as we can. All right, and that's about 90. Oops, that's about 97 degrees. Same thing would work, and I almost cut Thomas with this one, so be careful with those. All right, and then if I want to measure DIP, I'm stabilizing which bone right here? Middle phalanx or phalange, and moving the distal phalange. And again, I'm looking at, it looks a little less than 90 degrees right there. Okay, can I get you the, that? Okay. And I get about 85 degrees, or 84 degrees.